Hi everyone, it's Helen here from Bodywork-Pilates, and I just want to talk to you today about terminology. If you're not familiar with Pilates, it can sometimes feel like it has a language all of its own. And there are certain terminologies that are used in Pilates that you possibly won't hear elsewhere. But what I want to talk to you today about is some of the terminology that you might hear me using in classes, on videos on the Facebook page or videos on the YouTube channel. And I want to talk particularly about a couple of things that I talk about, which is the rib to hip connection or the bony landmarks of the body. And I use these a lot in classes as reference. So what I'm talking about when I talk about bony landmarks are the breastbone, the pubic bone, the ribs and the hips. And the distances between those, so our rib to hip connection, the distances between those, whether they move away from each other or whether they close down towards each other or whether they stay stationary, that's what we talk about when we talk about moving or stabilising our bony landmarks. So for example, if you were doing shoulder bridge, lying on the back, you would be curling the pelvis in, the pubis would be pulling towards the breastbone, and you would find that your bony landmarks, the pubic bone would be pulling towards the breastbone, the hips pulling towards the ribs, they would shorten. The back edge of the body would lengthen, front edge of the body would shorten. You would be drawing your bony landmarks closer together. If we were to do swimming, lying on the tummy, lifting head and shoulders, lifting away, then we would be extending through the front edge of the body and we would be drawing our bony landmarks apart, lifting the ribs away from the hips, lifting the hips away from the ribs, increasing that range between the two. So what else would we have? In seated, if we were doing a side bend, we would be drawing down ribs to hips as we side bent, moving these apart. So on this side, we would be closing our bony landmarks, and on this side, we would be opening or distancing the bony landmarks. So I use those a lot. So to show you again, if you are lying in your neutral position, so once you've found that neutral position, you would have the distance set from ribs to hips, from breastbone to pubic bone. That would stay stable if, for example, so they wouldn't move if, for example, you were doing something like backstroke, extending the arm and the opposite leg. What we wouldn't want to see as we extended the arm back is this pull up of the ribs, this push forward of the pelvis, and that would take those landmarks further apart. So we're looking to maintain that same distance. That would keep your spine in neutral. Everything would be lovely. But on something like shoulder bridge, as I mentioned before, you would be drawing those closer together. So you would be curling the pubic bone towards the breastbone, the hips towards the ribs, imprinting the low back in order to then peel. At the top of the movement, of course, we then lengthen out and we take ourselves back to where we were when we were lying flat. So now I'm back into my neutral bony landmark position. My spine is as it would be. All I've done is I've elevated myself towards my shoulders, base of the shoulder blades, nothing in the neck. And then as I roll back down again, I try to shorten that front edge of the body. So I roll, length into the back of the body, shortness into the front edge of the body, pulling these bony landmarks closer together. And then once again, returning the spine to neutral, so taking my bony landmarks back to the same position that they were in a moment ago. So that's what we talk about when we talk about the rib to hip connection. The rib to hip connection is that distance from the ribs to the hips, and we either want to maintain that when we want our torso to remain stable and still, or we change it by moving the bony landmarks away from each other, towards each other, depending on what the movement might be. So I hope that's made sense. I hope that's helped clarify. If you have seen videos or you've been in class and I've talked about these things and it hasn't really made any sense, you don't really understand what I'm talking about, then of course you're not going to get the best out of the class. So it's really important that you understand the terminology that we use in our classes. And I just wanted to see if that would help. If you've got any questions at all, just give us a shout. Take care.